Welcome back. Today, in the limited amount of time I have available, I'm going to try to learn as much as I can from my last few rapid games on Lichess. I won at least one of them, but I think I lost most of them. Let's just take a look. This is last night's game on about move 11. According to the graph, right at the end of the opening, I had a pretty decent advantage, -2, and over the next few moves I gave that advantage away. What I played here was bishop to e7. I'm trying to guess what I should have played next. I know it's in the right column, but I haven't looked, so what should I have played? I think the reason that I played bishop to e7 was so that I could castle very soon. It looked like my opponent was aiming at my d-pawn here, but my d-pawn is, twice protected. And of course, once this knight gets out of the way, it'll be protected again. Maybe should I have gotten the knight out of the way now? Knight to c5, maybe aiming in here. Well, not immediately because their knight's there, but maybe going here to push that bishop back. Okay, it was knight to e5. Sorry, I thought it said knight to c5 first. I should have played it over here. Or h5. Well, I never know when to play my h-pawns, except every now and then, if they have a bishop here pinning the knight, I know to play h6 some of the time, but h5. And it says they would play a4. I don't know if that's true, but if they did, then I would play g5 after that. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't I play g5 now? I guess if I played g5 now, they could always put the knight over here on h5. Because their queen's defending that square, so if I captured, they would take with their queen. That's maybe why I need to play h5 first, because my rook's behind that. So then, depending on what they do, I would play g5, so their knight would only have one place to go. No, it could go back there. But then I would have those two pawns way up in the front. And what would I do after that? Oh, it says b4. Okay, well, this makes a little more sense to me because it does add the extra protector to the pawn, but I wonder why not knight to c5, which does the same thing, gets out of the way of the queen, also defending this pawn, but it also attacks the bishop. But I guess I'm not supposed to attack the bishop. If I did play knight to e5, it says I could expect them to just go ahead and drop this bishop back to c2, then I would want to play a5. Okay. How bad would it have been if I had played over here? I still would have been up -1, whereas this is 1.3 if I go to e5. But before I turn on the engine, it said -2, didn't it? So the game review didn't run quite as deep. But if I play here, it goes up a little bit, 1.6, and it does say that they would play back here, but, well, I'm not sure I understand that. It does look like this is defended enough right now. Wait, I've been miscounting the whole time. Their queen's also pointed at that. Never mind, I understand why it has to be one of these two. I don't understand h5, because they were planning on taking this clearly. It's the whole reason they came up here. If I played h5, why wouldn't they just take this pawn? Let me see if I play that. They're going to take here? No, that gives me a huge advantage. But again, it's knight to e5, but I'm not sure why, because they just went up a pawn and it says they would save their knight. I would not trade queens. Well, in the game, I probably would trade queens here. But the engine thinks I should just move over one or play bishop to d6. Okay, well, again, I do understand these two moves. I don't understand h5, but I do understand that I just now realized their queen is also pointed at this. Okay, got it. But I played here, which means that they can take that pawn, and I should have castled. Well, castling was the reason that I put this bishop here. But instead, I took the knight, then realized probably during the game that the queen and the bishop were pointed at it. They took, and oh, it says I should play up here to defend the bishop. Well, I just thought since, the bishop's in a bad way anyway, I should probably go ahead and trade off for them, which I did. They took back, and I castled, which is one of my top 2 moves. But now my opponent can just get this pawn for free. Is that what they did? Yes. Okay, so we're very nearly even here. Now I should play knight to c5. Okay. Or a5. No, knight to c5 is my only move that wouldn't be counted as at least an inaccuracy. I'm not sure why. I put this over here, lining up with their queen and their king. I know there's a pawn between them, but that always seems like a good move, doesn't it? But according to this, no. Now my opponent is up over +1. Only move is putting the knight on c5, where I could have put it a few turns earlier. My opponent's now up 2 center pawns, so I don't even understand how it's this close to even, but only if I play here. Okay, if I play here, they're obviously going to move their queen somewhere. The engine thinks maybe just over here, maybe drop all the way back. Not here, not here. It says f5. For some reason, I was thinking there. That didn't make any sense because then I could check and get the queen for the knight. Okay, f5 makes more sense, but then it says I would immediately play g6, so they would have to go all the way back there anyway. And then I would, I guess, have some weak squares around my king. Okay, but if they went back to c2, I would go ahead and check here on d3, which would force them to move their king. And if they went the other way when I did this pawn and then they went back, then I would check here either way and they would move their king to e2 either way. All right, well, I'm struggling to see why that is such a big deal, but I did this and now I'm behind +1. But my opponent messed up here and I didn't take advantage of it. Okay, they played over here, which I assume, lining up with this, they were probably thinking about bringing the bishop at some point. And now I should have played knight to e5, but it had to be e5, not f6, for some reason. I don't know why. I get that e5 attacks the queen, but so does f6. So what I played was a mistake. Why is this not a mistake for the same reason? It says because after they move, I would check here with the knight. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe the whole point of this knight being on one of these squares is so that I can check on d3 so their king has to move. In some games, I understand why that's a huge deal, but in this game, that looks like it just lets their rook out. So that's why I'm not sure why this is such a big deal, but it does look like in all these cases where I should have played here or I should have played here, it's because I'm going to check on d3 here in just a minute. But this doesn't cut it because it doesn't threaten the check on d3. I'm guessing that's the huge difference. Well, I did notice that the square d3 existed. I didn't notice that with my knight earlier where it could have jumped in, but I did notice that it was there, and I thought if I put my queen there, they can't castle. But that turned out to not be that great. I lost just a little bit, but enough to put us at +1 again. Wow. I'm not going to go through every move, but over here it looks like there were some huge ups and downs. My opponent gave away something, and I missed something here. I left the lines on, didn't I? And if I look to turn off that little toggle, I'll see what I should have played. But what did I play? I don't know, because if I look at the move list, I'll see what I did play, and then what should have. I guess I'm going to have to look. What I did play was bishop to c5. Okay. I think I remember wanting to put it there, bring it back this way so that it would be pointed over here. I think that was my plan, and it does look like, yeah. Oh, those were all blunders? Okay. Well, a few moves later, I did eventually get it over here. But what I should have done was queen to c2. That's my only move that keeps us even. And the engine thinks that if I did put my queen on c2, they would not move in any way to protect this pawn, for example, with this rook, or by pushing the pawn. The engine thinks they would move this rook over to protect the bishop, and then I would take the pawn. And then they would play a4, and I would take that too. Well, let's just say that I found this. Why wouldn't they protect this pawn? Oh my, any move but this would be a blunder. Why? Okay, sorry, I've got to know. Why wouldn't they play this? Oh, because, okay, I understand. Okay, backing up. I already have a rook pointed at the bishop. It would make sense to put the queen here, so I have two pieces pointed at that bishop, so they would have to bring the rook over to defend the bishop so they don't go down a full piece. Okay, I do understand this one. I don't understand the other things that we got to up to this point, but I do understand this. And once they did that, my only move that keeps us even is taking this pawn. There might be other moves, but two moves that keep my opponent even are a4 or king to f1. But again, it says if they played a4, I would take it, probably, and then they would take back, and then I would go back to c2, and then they would bring that rook back. I do understand what this move does. It threatens to pick up the bishop. If they defend it with the rook, then I get a pawn, and I'm going to have to be real careful getting my queen out of there, probably. I'm not sure why this is a blunder, just that I didn't go pick up this pawn. It's still their best move to defend the bishop. Oh, and it says if they did, I would still go to queen to c2. Okay, my opponent did defend the bishop, and now I have to go to c2. Okay, so that up and down on the graph was me missing the same thing every time, probably. I went ahead with my plan of bringing this bishop back around, but now they need to move this bishop so that it's protecting that pawn, but instead they played a3, and again I have to play queen to c2. Okay, I just kept missing this, the opportunity to win one pawn. I went ahead with my plan of bringing my bishop back around to point down here at the h-pawn, and again, they need to play bishop to c1 to protect that pawn, but they didn't, and I finally saw queen to c2. I knew I couldn't get this because they have already defended it with the rook, but I thought I might be able to get a pawn out of the deal. I guess my opponent saw that their queen is undefended, so they moved this rook over to defend the queen, which gives me a lead if I take the pawn. I did take the pawn, but my opponent's still a pawn ahead. My opponent's best move is to put the king up here or play g3. Well, they probably didn't guess that for the same reasons that I don't know why those are their best moves. And they tried to attack my queen by going here, but that allows me... Oh, I should have taken their queen. Really? Oh, of course I should have. Oh my goodness. Okay, I do understand this. Because when they took back, that rook's undefended, and that's why they needed to put the king up here or play g3. Oh my goodness. So after I took this pawn, they need to put the king up here so that that's not a check here in a second. I thought the reason that I was down there was to pick off these pawns. And since they've defended that one, I picked off this one. But that's a blunder because I didn't take their queen. I do understand that. But that's not the move that lost me the game. I didn't lose the game till way over here. We're dead even according to this. If only I will play rook to g8 because obviously they've lined up here. I played my second best move, but it was a really bad one. Really, really bad. I thought maybe if I checked them, I would be able to, come down here and get them somehow. But I think what I failed to realize is if they go here, they only have one legal move with the king. They can block with the rook, but they're not going to. They have to move the king here. And then I can't check them again because, I would lose my queen. So I didn't think this through very thoroughly. I did see that they were down here, but I also knew that they can't check me while I'm checking them, so that's why I started checking. I also thought, what if I came over here? They're still going to win, probably, but I guess not. I guess if I had played here, they don't have anything they can do, except they can start marching these pawns down, which is one thing it says they can do, or play queen to e6, which I'm not sure what that does, but they could have played it. I understand this one. I had to play g8. Okay. In the game from the night before, I won by checkmate, as you can see here on the board. However, I was behind for a bunch of the middle game here. According to this graph, there was no end game, but I was a little bit ahead and then I gave it away, and my opponent was ahead for a long time until they gave up checkmate. So here, I played knight capture. Oh, yeah, okay. I think I do remember this. Yeah, this was just a couple of nights ago. I think I considered castling here, but I wasn't sure how this would play out. I do remember being fairly happy with my position up to this point. I was happy that I had developed all my pieces and that my opponent had not developed all their pieces. And because of where they put their queen earlier, that bishop's going to take at least 2 moves to get out. But obviously the problem with taking here is that they're going to take back with the pawn, and then I have to move my queen and that pawn's going to get my bishop. Okay, this one is very close to an elementary level blunder, but by the definitions that I came up with, it's an intermediate blunder because it hangs a piece due to a tactic. Because this is an even trade, but then losing the bishop to the pawn, that's the outcome of playing this knight move, is losing the bishop to a pawn. So that is a slight tactical distance between my move and the resulting bad thing that happens to me. My definition's not that important. It's just how I classify mistakes and blunders in my head. But it makes sense that I should not have taken that. I definitely should have, seen this whole problem here. Okay, should I have castled? Yes, I should have castled or just moved this knight. I think I understand that. But castling, yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason you develop all your pieces, right? Is so you can castle. All right, so I understand why this is bad, and then I'm just down a piece, and a lot of people would have resigned here. I think probably at this point I realized I was going to lose the bishop after I moved my queen. Queen to c5 was the best. It's still helping to defend here, even though I can't take it, because both their bishop and their rook are going to be pointed at that pawn. Of course, they did take my bishop. Now it is my best move to castle, but I'm down +4 because, passed pawn, and I'm missing a piece. So we went on quite a stretch here with nobody making any more mistakes until about here, and my opponent should have just brought this rook back because I had just challenged it with this pawn. But they moved it over here. Oh, Stockfish says I should have taken f3 right now. Wait, I'm down a piece. I'm down a rook for a pawn now after a few other trade-offs here. But I should give up the bishop for this pawn so that I can check. And they're going to come up, and I can't follow with the queen because their queen's guarding that square. So I would take the, what? Okay, I should give up the bishop for the pawn, then check here. They're going to move up, and I should take the bishop. Wait, sorry, I just gave up a bishop for a pawn, and now I'm going to give up a rook for a bishop. It says if they take back, I would have an advantage. Okay, well, let's say they took back because I can check here and win the rook. So when they go back, I'm going to win this rook. When they come up here, I'm going to win this pawn, and I'm ahead. I'm down a whole rook, but I'm ahead. And their best move is queen to h5 because I can't take it because this pawn is pinned. Okay, that's their best move, but they probably wouldn't play it. They would probably play this to defend the rook, and then I would attack the queen with this pawn, which is defended by my queen, and then they would have to end up going to where they were anyway. Why not down here? Oh, because I would get the rook. Oh my. Okay, what if they had played their best move here? What if they had gone to h5? Then I would check on f2, they would go down, I would check on f1, they would come up, and I would check on f2, and they would go down, and then I would play f6. Or check on f1 again, which of course would be a draw, so I'm not sure how I'm ahead if yeah, that's a draw, so no, that's not -2. I probably, even if all that had happened, I probably wouldn't have found this here. I probably would have gone for the draw thinking I'm way behind. I would have had no idea I was ahead, and if they kept moving back and forth, I would have kept moving back and forth. Yeah, now it does not suggest repeating, obviously. I would still have to find f6. Okay, well, I did not know that I had to give up my bishop for this pawn and then eventually give up my rook for the bishop because I'm not a computer. I played my second best move, which leaves my opponent still ahead. I dropped this back to, of course, aim at the rook, and they had to give it up. I had to play bishop to e2, only move. Second best move is to take the g-pawn, but they tried to save the rook, which gives me a mate in 2. Now, to my credit, I found it because the queen can't see that spot anymore. I will admit that for just a second, I thought about playing f6 here, but I did not. I checked down there, they came up, and that's checkmate. So good little story there, but I do understand this. I should not have taken that. That makes total sense very close to elementary level blunder. But thank goodness my opponent made a slightly more complex blunder later on to give me checkmate. I do feel like if I didn't learn something from this game, I at least, we can call this learning. This is reinforcing something that I already know. This is bad. It's a bad situation. But right now I don't have anywhere I can move my queen, and it's temporarily safe. They can't immediately attack it. So get my king to safety, and then I'll worry about what to do with my queen. Like maybe bring this knight down here so I can, get the queen out a slightly different way, but not give it up now like I did in the game. And in the previous game, I did understand a couple of those later mistakes and or blunders, just not the first few, where I lost that first advantage, where I made 3 or 4 inaccuracies in a row. Those I'm not sure I would ever be able to find the correct moves. Maybe someday. Well, let me know what you're doing to get better at chess, especially if it's something I can do in less than 30 minutes. And either way, I appreciate you spending your time here. I'll see you next time.